On Friday, a man named Robert Louis Deere opened fire inside of a Planned Parenthood. Now, that attack killed about 3 people and wounded 5 others. Now, there's been a lot of speculation on the motive for this terrorist attack. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a terrorist attack. It's domestic terrorism. Now, this had been the motive. Well, they're not sure about the motive, right? But it has been revealed that Deere had allegedly said something along the lines of no more baby parts. Well, now anybody who's been following the whole Planned Parenthood thing knows that there's been a set of edited videos that had been released by an anti-abortion group that had allegedly shown the sale of baby parts for profit. Now, as I said, not true. Well, it's all been debunked. They don't actually make money off selling baby parts. Okay? No money is received. The thing about it is there is some money involved for the transport of fetal tissue, which actually gets used to solve all sorts of medical issues, to do research on, to solve things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. That's the stuff that we're using fetal tissue to research on. Donated fetal tissue, by the way. It's not sold. There is no profit involved. But nonetheless, this has been, this rumor, this narrative, has been continuously repeated over and over by even our presidential candidates. So, now as I said, Robert Deere, the shooter, had allegedly told an officer no more baby parts. And that's why, part of why he did it. All right. Now, Ted Cruz, however, Ted Cruz, running for president on the Republican side, well, he's going to ignore all of that and actually do his own speculation about the motive based on nothing more than a typo. All right. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when asked over the weekend by a reporter about the shooting, Cruz actually said that Deere was a, quote, transgendered leftist activist. That he had heard that he was a transgendered leftist activist. Quote, we know that he was a man registered to vote as a woman. Now, wait a minute here. Where did he get this? What's going on here? Where did he get this information? Well, he actually did get this from a voter registration card. Now, I kind of wish I want to show that to you right now. All right, so you can see this voter registration card. You can see where it's not necessarily all that clear what box was actually checked. Okay. Okay, so that card supposedly identifies him as a woman. Oh, well, there you go. Transgender activist. There you go. You got it. Except that, no, you don't got it. Think Progress actually reported that on Monday, the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder's Office confirmed that on the case of this voter registration card, there had been a clerical error. Ryan Parcell, who's El Paso's County Chief Deputy Clerk and Recorder, told the Colorado Springs Gazette that his office was responsible for the mistake, calling it a data entry error. That's an error. It's an obvious error, right? That happens sometimes. Okay. There's an error. Now, when Deere received a driver's license with that error, he noticed that. So what did he do about it? Well, he took a look at it and said, well, that ain't right. So he went to the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV. It was a different office, to request a corrected license, which he then received. One that actually properly identified him as a man. Deere also attempted to fix his voter registration form, which required submitting a change in voter registration information form to the Park County Clerk and Recorder's Office. His registration, however, was not adjusted because the dot in the mailbox A small dark spot was apparently so faint that a deputy clerk concluded it was not an intentional mark. So once again, clerical error. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up, right? Well, however, even though that's cleared up and it's an error, he's not a man pretending to be a woman. He's not transgendered. Well, it's probably too late now that the conservatives have jumped on the bandwagon. Now, why do I say that? All right, well, the discrepancy on this voter registration form was actually first reported by the journal of, or the bastion of journalism known as the Gateway Pundit. Oh boy, the Gateway Pundit. Under the claim that he identifies as a woman. So their whole headline is that he's a transgender, he identifies as a woman. Colorado shooter identifies as a woman. That's not it. It's a clerical error. But even now, and I visited the Gateway Pundit before doing this video. They're not issuing a retraction. In fact, they had the Think Progress article quoted, and no retraction. No saying that, well, there's no proof. There's no proof that he said baby parts. So, there you go. Take that, liberal media. So the Gateway Pundit, it's still pushing this narrative that he's possibly transgender. That's ridiculous. But once again, we're dealing with the Gateway Pundit here. Now, as to people that live in the real world, well, we see that there's actually no, there's no evidence to suggest that this man was transgendered, nor was he even a leftist or an activist of any kind. We do know he didn't like Obama. According to some of his neighbors, he used to pass out anti-Obama pamphlets to people. He also reportedly, according to one of his ex-wives, was an evangelical Christian, identified as. Said he loved the Bible, read it front to back. And he believed in it. And, you know, he also liked his guns. He liked hunting. He had several guns. Okay. Now, none of these things on their own make people violent. You even put them together. Being a Christian doesn't make you a violent person. Having a gun doesn't make you predisposed to violence. Like, we all know that, right? Not liking Obama, that also doesn't make you a violent person. You can disagree with somebody's politics. There's no problem with that. I disagree with other people's politics all the time. I even disagree with some of Obama's politics. Okay, that's fair, right? However, as I said, you know, those of us who live in the real world, we know that people who like guns and religion can also be liberal. They can also be liberal. Now, Ted Cruz operates on a stereotype of what a liberal actually is. I'm sure someone like Ted Cruz believes that liberals are latte-sipping elitists who are atheist, bleeding heart hippies that want to do nothing but ban your guns and force you into gay Islamic marriages. I'm pretty sure that's what Ted Cruz believes, at least according to his rhetoric. Now, people in the real world, we know that's not true. But my point is, not all conservatives are Republicans, right? Not all Republicans are conservative. Now, he doesn't identify with liberals. He doesn't identify as a Democrat. And on his voter registration form, he actually also doesn't identify as a Republican. He's actually unaffiliated. So his party registration doesn't really mean much. But what it does show is that he was far from being a leftist activist, much less transgender. So this whole narrative is bunk. It's bullshit. But that didn't stop Ted Cruz and the rest of the right-wing media from taking this narrative and running with it. Oh, he's a Democrat. He's a leftist. He's transgender. Oh, give me a break. Give me a break. Now, to be fair, Ted Cruz spokesman Rick Tyler came out and recently clarified these remarks. Quote, he was making the point that there isn't enough information. You can't expect a full response to a story that's developing The point was there was a lot of raw information going around that's not confirmed. The campaign also explained that Cruz received his information from a right-leaning website known as The Right Scoop, which used the voter registration form to ask, and this was a headline, was the Colorado shooter a transgender person? Now, doesn't that sort of add to the narrative that transgender people are dangerous? But when you look at the facts, when you actually examine facts, logic, and reason, well, you can't come up with that response. You just can't come up with that. It makes no sense. Now, I think by now, it's pretty obvious, looking at the facts, looking at the data that we do have, and I agree that we don't have everything, but we have enough to paint a picture of who this guy was. And it certainly wasn't leftist. It certainly wasn't transgender. So now, it's up to Ted Cruz to go and correct his response. And he also, I think, should apologize to the transgender community, as should the rest of the right wing. Although something tells me that I think the transgender community, they're going to be waiting a long time for that apology.